They are tall, pale, and extremely intelligent. What's more, they secretly live among us. In 2012, former US Air Force weather observer Charles James Hall published the first part of a book series claiming that these beings not only exist, but they have aided in creating the advanced technology we all use today. Sounds like science fiction, right? But Charles Hall is just one of the many witnesses who have encountered the tall whites. Could it all be true? Are the tall whites quietly influencing the course of human history, or is this just another wild conspiracy? We will find out together in this new episode of Secret Origins. Welcome. In recent times, numerous UFO researchers have risen to the surface with speculations on extraterrestrial beings. With the advent of spacecraft combined with satellite technology, the theories are becoming realistic while sparking questions alongside. But among these conspiracy theories, the story of the tall whites has raised the most dust. Imagine a world where alien beings walk among us, so integrated into the society that they remain undetectable until provoked. That was until one man stepped over the line. In 1964, Charles James Hall enlisted in the US Air Force, ready to serve his nation. What he didn't know was that he had just signed up for the wildest experience of his life. Once he checked off all necessary tests, Hall was welcomed to the crew with a jolly party at the officers' club. This was where Hall got his first warning. As the men celebrated, they noticed that one soldier was absent, the duty range observer. "Must be out partying with Range 4, Harry." Another soldier joked. "Range 4, Harry. Who could that be?" The nervous look in the eyes of his fellow soldiers told the newbie that they would rather not explain. But Hall thought nothing of it other than a Johnny-just-come welcome prank. However, his conversation with the in-house cook would further spark his interest. As he tried to pass on the joke from the party to the chef, he watched her cheerful expression move from a warm 100 to a chilling 0. What in the world was happening? But once again, Hall waved it off. There was no way a mere speculation would give him jitters. He could take care of himself. But a few days later, Hall would reconsider his confident stance. Posted to his station in Nellis, Nevada, Indian Springs, he met with the soldier who manned the base before him. As they moved through the weather shacks in the desert area, Hall noticed something strange. The once bubbling soldier was gradually losing his joy. From range 1 to 2 and 3, the soldier did not want to drive the truck any further. His hands were shaking with fear, and Hall knew that something was amiss. To lighten the moment, Halls jokingly asked if it was Range 4 Harry who was getting his partner so worked up. But instead of a laugh, the soldier's fear became even more visible. Something was wrong, and Hall was curious to know what it was. But this soldier was too scared to reveal anything. All he wanted to do was forge the coordinates and leave the area. This left Hall with only half a day's training on the new job and a whole new territory with unspoken entities lurking in the background, waiting for the perfect time to strike. And when it was time, they struck. At around 9 p.m. on that fateful night, Hall knew he was not alone. Although the desert remained calm as usual, he kept hearing strange sounds. In the documentary, Walking with the Tall Whites, Hall says that he first attributed the strange sounds to helicopters from the barracks. However, his first encounter with the tall whites made him rethink his assumption. While he was relieving himself, it seemed like a white lady stood in the first cubicle holding a squarish weapon. In a split moment, the once bold weather observer lost his breath. This was a dream. It had to be. Deciding that this was no more than him sleepwalking, he moved as fast as he could into the shack and forced himself to sleep. "I must be losing my mind," he thought. But the events of the following days showed him that his interactions with these entities had just begun. Just the next day, Hall was doing his routine check when he saw it. A little white girl hiding behind a sagebrush. Forgetting all about the scary incident from the previous night, Hall was moved to cater to the child. So he grabbed 2 cans of water and moved closer to the girl, offering reassuring words while watching out for any signs of danger. Little did the young soldier know she was no ordinary girl. In a split second, the sounds of metal arcs chirping seemed to increase in tempo. As he moved closer, his eyes widened. This was no human. Immediately, he turned back on his heels. That was the beginning of a string of shocking happenings in the Indian Springs. As he stumbled back to the weather shack, Hall kept reassuring the girl of her safety. But was Charles safe himself? As if to confirm this, he stopped walking and turned. But he was in no way prepared to see the tremendous flash of light shaped as a man dashing toward him at record speed. There it was, Range 4 Harry, in all its queer glory. Hall staggered in shock and resumed the only activity his brain told him to: walk back to the weather shack. Now, how did these creatures look? Although we were not present, Charles Hall's infamous book, Millennial Hospitality, does its best to describe the extraterrestrials. In his words, the lady's skin was as white as a piece of paper, while he described the child as chalk white. But not only was their skin white, but he also depicted their hair to be platinum white and very short. However, one thing isn't short about these beings: their height. Speculated to be about 7 to 8 feet tall, the description easily placed them in the Nordic aliens class, with their origins rooted in the Pleiades star cluster. Why Nordic, you ask? It's because the characteristics of the tall whites, as described by Charles Hall and other acclaimed witnesses, reportedly share superficial similarities with Nordic, Germanic, or Scandinavian humans. In addition, Hall recounted that their clothing was like a shiny suit, one which seemed to give them the ability to levitate. However, their behavior was in no way human. In Walking with the Tall Whites, Hall reported that in the time spent with them, especially in the company of the ladylike entity, whom he called the teacher, they exhibited a strange sense of superiority and peace around him. He praised their intelligence while noting their mode of communication to be telepathic. No words were said, but he could converse with them from his head. Hall naturally attributed these supernatural abilities to advanced technology. But as fascinating as the physical appearance of these beings seems, nothing beats the claim that Charles Hall's serving time in the Indian Springs might have been a pawn in a much larger game. A game allegedly played by the US government, or more specifically, the shadow government. Wait, what? You heard that right. In the 1950s, over a decade before Hall reportedly encountered the tall whites, rumors about government involvement with these aliens were already cooking. Since the time frame coincided with the period of the Cold War and the rise of the UFO phenomenon, the claims were like unstoppable flames. Little wonder why these flames later turned to a raging inferno once Hall documented his testimony in his book series. According to Hall, the arrangement was simple. The tall whites would provide advanced technological solutions in exchange for resources and secrecy. And with further testimony, his account seemed true. For decades, whispers of clandestine agreements between governments and extraterrestrial beings have circulated in UFO circles. At the center of these claims is the idea that these humanoid beings supplied political bodies with technology that aided in the Cold War era. But what kind of technology? Fiber optics, microchips, and stealth technology. UFO theorists argue that these innovations were released too rapidly in the mid-20th century to have been mere human achievements. In their opinion, the Nordic aliens or tall whites handed over this knowledge to the US government. What for? Exchange of resources? Secrecy? Classified information? Perhaps Hall would have a certain answer. But for a transaction like this to have occurred, if it did occur, what physical location did it take place? Enter Area 51. Located in Nevada, Area 51 has gained popularity over the years for being a top-secret military base. This game does not just emerge because the base belongs to the government, no. Rather, there are intense claims that Area 51 is used by the government to hide alien spacecraft and for extraterrestrial collaboration. As with every rumor, this one should have long been watered down in the absence of proof. However, Charles Hall rose to confirm witnessing the presence of the tall whites and conversing with them for over the 2 years that he was posted to the weather shack close to the base. More so, the government identified the use of Area 51 to be a flight testing facility. However, they made it classified, with no public information about the ongoing research in the facility. This in turn raised more questions. What is the government hiding in Area 51? Could the theories be any good? As a reinforcement, many people have reported witnessing unidentified flying objects in the vicinity. One such testimony came from retired U.S. Army Colonel Philip J. Corso. In his book, The Day After Roswell, Colonel Corso reveals that he was assigned to work at a crash site in Roswell in 1947. But this was no ordinary crash site, it was mysterious. What started as a simple mission to safeguard the people in the area ended with Corso removing alien artifacts from the site and using them to improve the US military's technology. But that was not all. Colonel Corso claimed that the government was also involved in the Roswell incident, a claim which scientists and skeptics have since combated. But with the combination of Hall's testimony, Colonel Corso's account, the government's outright refusal to be transparent about Area 51's operations, and other civilian eyewitnesses, the theory is proving to be more than just a whistleblower plot. But if this is no theory, what is the government up to this time? We are just as curious. Now to the big question. Are the tall whites really among us? And if they are, where do they currently reside? The answers to these questions will follow in a minute. According to renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and so far, the tall whites narrative has offered a little more than hearsay. To buttress this point, anthropologists suggest that the tall whites' stories may be stemming from a deep-rooted human need to explain the unknown. Think about it. The idea of benevolently advanced creatures guiding humanity isn't new. It has been the basis for most cultural and religious beliefs. To these experts, what if the tall whites narrative is simply the latest chapter in a series of similar archetypal stories? Add to that, the modern audience is buzzing for juice like this, the sheer possibility of extraterrestrial life among us. Trust Charles Hall's detailed recount to come to the rescue. The story doesn't end with him nearly soiling his pants after his first encounter with the tall whites. From 1965 to 1967, Hall claimed that he had first-hand experience with this family of humanoids. Not only did he see them, he reiterated that he befriended and communicated with them as friends. Imagine living with extraterrestrials and learning from them over a while. Crazy, right? Still, Hall called the female-looking tall white the teacher, while Range 4 Harry retained his nickname. While anthropologists and astrophysicists think that the tall white story is hands down pure speculation, what do we make of Hall's too real story? Take, for example, the way he described a particular event with Range 4 Harry. In his words, one night, they wanted to see me start the generator, and the tall white who was taller and older than me could see what I was doing without burning my hand or moving in panic. Such details. Hall recounted how he needed to do most activities in a way that assured the tall whites of their safety with him. Yes. The former US Air Force weather observer noted that the fear was two-sided. Hall was not the only scared fellow after the encounter. The tall whites admitted to him that they fear humans too. However, is this enough reason to believe that the tall whites are among us? What if Hall was just being delusional? Well, that is what most people thought until the documentary was released in 2020. The thing is, Charles Hall is not the only person who was featured in the Walking with the Tall Whites documentary. His wife, Marie-Therese Hall also had something to say. When Charles's serving time in Nevada ended, he got married and raised 6 healthy kids. But after one contract, Hall was unemployed for over 18 months. It was during this period that Marie-Therese noticed something fishy. Her husband was not just writing frequently, but he shut the screen whenever she walked into him. In no time, she gained access to the manuscript and was chilled to her bones. In response to what her husband had penned down, she said, "We have to publish this, but you have to swear to me that it was true." At first, Hall tried to deny the Millennial Hospitality book series to be mere fiction. She attributed this initial denial to fear. This fear was smoothened out when she assured him that the tall whites were not going to come for him, and if they did, at least they could get a picture as proof this time. And who doesn't want to see a picture of the tall whites? It was a win-win situation. So with over 24 months of detailed encounters with the extraterrestrials and his wife's support, Hall unleashed his book. However, the book is only furnished with Hall's personal experiences with the tall whites. On a wider scale, there is a lack of substantial evidence regarding these extraterrestrials. And if you point to the questionable rapid developments in technology in the 50s, you may have to rethink your stance. Take fiber optics, for example. The development of this technology can be traced back to the 19th century, with significant contributions made by scientists John Tyndall and Narinder Singh Kapani, whereas ufology theorists are linking the development to be sourced from Nordic beings. And if you consider Area 51 as your next counterpoint, the US government has since released reports debunking the idea of alien visits and hidden spacecraft. So what is the truth? Is the lack of evidence a sign of a deeper truth? Is the government going to lengths to suppress knowledge of extraterrestrial interactions? Are the tall whites roaming in Nevada as we speak? Or finally, are the eyewitnesses all delusional? It is now science versus personal experiences. What do you think?